Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Zachariah Jackson, BASA News. I am happy to and honored to sit next to Laila Muhammad, the granddaughter, well, first the daughter of Ward B. Muhammad, and the granddaughter of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so we're going to sit here and talk about the beginning days of the Nation of Islam. So I brought with me, do you need water?
Well, that was good, thank you, I appreciate it.
I brought with me, for those of young and probably don't know who Elijah Muhammad is, I brought a photo of this man, Elijah Muhammad. He was born 1898, I believe it was.
You probably know that better than me. I don't remember exactly.
Okay. Laila, all right. Well, we want to start with the first pillars of the Nation of Islam. Can you go back on the first?
You said the first
Pillars, the beginning.
The beginnings, yes. So in the beginning, there was a mother, a woman, Clara Muhammad.
Yeah.
At that time, she was Clara Evans Poole, who had migrated from Georgia with her husband, Elijah Poole, and their earliest children, their firstborns. I can't tell you exactly who was born at that time, but about 4, maybe more than that, of their children. And they were living in Detroit during the time of Depression, the Great Depression, and experiencing everything that people experienced at that time, the hardship, the fear, the disappointment of that they migrated to the north for something better, and they didn't get something better. they got something different, but not better.
And let me add that the weather was quite different.
Quite different.
It was in Sanderville, Georgia.
Yes, sir. So to move along, my grandmother, she came from 2 spaces that I'd like to highlight, and that is a spiritual space with a belief in God, and that her father was a preacher, had a successful congregation, and she was somewhat of a classy type woman. She had married another person, her husband, that was also a preacher's child. But his dad's congregation and his status wasn't as much, but their spirits brought them together. And my grandmother, like most women, she had a girlfriend that she talked to, and they knew each other and knew what they were longing for. So her girlfriend told her, "You need to come hear this guy. He's talking really good stuff, and I think you would be interested." And the person was W.D. Farad. So Sister Clara Muhammad, she went with her girlfriend and listened. She loved it. She came back home, told her husband. And I like to say that we should take example from this couple, that she shared something good and her husband received it. So they went back and heard W.D. Farad speak again. And at that time, W.D. Farad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he told his wife, Sister Clara Muhammad, that we're Muslims. We're going to go home and throw all the pork away. And also, one of my cousins had shared with me the fact that he had a dime on that day.
A dime?
Dime, 10 cents.
10 cents.
A 10 cent. And he took that 10 cent and put it in a donation box that W.D. Farad had. And that he mentioned from time to time in the future that dime and that donation had done so much for his life and for his people. So another fact that we should take example, no matter how poor you are, you can give, and God will bless that giving in such a way that it'll be a miracle.
And so in such early time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, at that time he was Elijah Poole, that when he met W. Farad Muhammad at the time, and instantly they switched from pork to
Yes.
That was a part of W.B. Farrad's message.
Yes. Well, W.B. Farrad's message was some of the like very, very simple, common thread things about being a Muslim.
Okay.
That you refer to God as Allah.
Right.
That you don't eat pork. You know, you recite the opening chapter of the Quran, the Al-Fatiha, and also you don't drink. And that's a very important issue because it was back then common knowledge amongst family and friends, and now it has become historical empowerment.
Sure.
That the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was self-medicating with alcohol, and in our family, it was.
Before he became Elijah
Yes,
Muhammad.
when he
Yes,
at
yes.
that time,
I've heard
yes.
that, yeah.
And so that's my point. So my point is, yes, he said throw away the pork, but he also put the bottle down. Yes, yes.
Well, okay, I'm going to touch on something too. I guess it's kind of trivial, but it means a lot to, I guess, a great many of us. The bean pie.
That's not trivial.
Well, okay, when they made the bean pie, because my family comes from Georgia also. They
Okay.
came in 1923 to actually visit New Jersey, and then moved to New York in 1927. We got 100 years here.
Wow.
But my mother didn't know much about that. Didn't know anything about the bean pie. We learned about the bean pie from the Muslims. Now, with the bean pie, kind of like in competition, was it to replace the sweet potato pie?
No, I don't think it was. Not intentionally, but I think intentionally, or I should really say, I believe I know. Intentionally, and people know that there was a book called How to Eat to Live.
Yes.
So intentionally, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad changed the diet. And I think that he changed the diet for food purposes, of course.
Okay.
However, he was a psychological and a strategic thinker. And I believe that he changed the diet to get people to having the subconscious that I am no longer a slave, and so I don't eat the slave food.
Okay.
And so it was not that the sweet potato was bad for you, because we know now that how good the sweet potato is for you. But the sweet potato was a subliminal correlation, that it was the slave food.
Right.
And many of the other things, like even subliminally, there was the practice that we would color our food. Like we used a lot of turmeric. Back then, people didn't use turmeric.
No.
But we colored the rice. We did two things to the rice. We would brown it, put a little oil in the pan, and like fry it until it got brown, and then cook it because we wasn't eating nothing white. Because that's subliminal message.
Right, okay.
and
kind of like when Ali said that angel food.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we would put turmeric in cabbage, turmeric in rice, and so everything was a psychological reformation to make us realize we were not slaves, and that we were empowered, you know. And in fact, the extreme philosophy was given that, in fact, that God is not white, but God is black, et cetera, et cetera. But I would like to say this about the bean pie. The bean pie was not made by one person specifically. A lot of sisters started experimenting with it. Then one of my family members, actually two of my family members, they experimented with it by straining the beans. So it's a collective, what we eat now. In my opinion, the best one is in Chicago. Brother Charles, may he rest peacefully. He just passed recently. But there is a sister that is making the recipe that is that particular recipe that I think has been passed down. But this is one more thing about the bean pie. I think it maybe could have been that Honorable Elijah Muhammad knew this, because you know our people understood ever since we were on this land, because we descended from Africans.
Yes.
The ability to use food to heal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I know now, in my quest of being healthy, that a lot of doctors are saying beans are so good for you that you should eat them every day. And that's in fact what the Muslims did. They had bean
Now-
soup once a day.
Yeah, and the beans for the bean pie was navy beans.
Yes, navy beans.
Which is a hard bean today to find.
Yes, 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 it is.
Never find it on sale.
Yes, yes.
You know.
But that's what they do, you know. When something get good and they like oxtails was the cheap stuff.
That's right.
And now you can't hardly afford them. So, so yeah.
So the founding, okay, during that time, this was before the charismatic ministers, as of Malcolm and Farrakhan, things like that. Farrakhan coming out the mountain. The nation was still a firm organization. Mm-hmm. It was a building block, if you will.
Yes, from the beginning, I think that the early beginnings, I would say, and really from the beginning, I would say it was an organization, yes, and had a structure. Because with Farad, he named people captains.
Sure.
You know, so there was a structure from the beginning, and I think that was a threat to the powers that be. And that's why they arrested my grandfather along with 93, I believe it was, other men that the majority of them weren't even of draft age. They were too old, but they were arrested and imprisoned. And again, what kept the structure or the organization together was Clara Muhammad. She would write the Quran by hand on paper, take it to the visit to her husband in jail. He began to teach in the prison, and she handled, along with people that helped her, all of the administrative work while he was gone.
Well, let me ask you, in the Nation of Islam, the early days of Nation of Islam, your whole family was in the Nation. Your grandfather was in the Nation, was that? Or?
So my grandfather, and this is how my father has impressed it upon me, may Muhammad, may everyone that I have spoke of, may they rest peacefully, may they transition and reach the highest of paradise. Amen. He expressed upon me in the last years of his life that when I speak about these things, that I should share that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Sister Clara Muhammad converted as a family.
Yes.
Because not only did the two of them and their children, siblings,
yes,
and also
I think he had an uncle. Did he have an uncle?
Grandparents, you know, that their parents, Mother Marie and Grandpa Willie, but the person that I always like to talk about is Grandma Peggy. Now, she was my grandfather's granny, and she was alive, and she converted at the same time with all of them, and she actually was a slave.
Okay.
And she's passed stories down. And one of the things that she said was that her mother was enslaved from Ghana. And I just left Ghana.
Let me ask you, was one of your grandmother's name Marielle?
Marielle? No.
Because the BASA in Chicago.
Miriam, you mean?
Miriam.
Miriam.
Yeah, that's right.
So Miriam is the word of the mother of Christ Jesus in Arabic.
Okay.
That Miriam is Mary.
Okay.
Mariam, different pronunciations. So no, the mosque is named that reason for the mother of Christ Jesus. I believe that's why Minister Farrakhan named it that. But my grandmother, my grandfather's mother's name was Marie. And that's, you know, a derivative.
Yeah, okay. Somewhere I can pick that up. Well, you know, back in those days, you know, we as Black Americans, we didn't have a whole lot that we could actually, places that we could express ourselves because of the Jim Crow law or appeal to segregation by the same law. And that a religion or organization like the Nation of Islam offered that. I go back to 1959 when Honorable Elijah Muhammad visited Newark. He said that, and the reason why I remember this real good, I heard it. He said that he's trying to get by as a messenger of Allah, but Father Divine said he's God incarnate. And the reason why I know so much about that part because my family followed the Father Divine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so my husband, cause so I live here in Jersey now. Was born in Philly, so I like to brag and say, my genes called me back. I'm really an East Coaster, but that's not the truth. I'm from the Midwest, and I really didn't even know anything about Father Divine until my husband started talking to me about it, and I moved here, and other people like yourself. But I do respect and have great respect, and I have appreciation that I have that knowledge now that's a part of our evolution.
Yes.
And if there's a book called The Spirit of Bilal Community is Born, and it talks about that evolution, that it wasn't just one community of believers. African Americans never stopped and had a continuation and a beautiful thread.
Sure.
Looking for the truth.
Yes. And you were born in Philly. Father Divine headquarters, even to today.
Oh, is it Philadelphia?
It's in Coshie-Hawkins. I'm trying to say where Coshie-Hawkins.
Okay.
That's right up from Philly.
I have to visit there. Okay, thank you.
The Mother Divine just died, I think, 3 years ago. Yes. Done great work. All right. Well, let's get into some of the ideology of the nation. Some people, when you talk about different groups, they call it dogma. But I'll just stick with the ideology. Now, the making of the devil in this book here, the message of the I'm sure you went through it.
Yeah, and that's a new edition. That's why I said, what is that? Because we had it as a textbook in school, and it looked quite different.
It was red.
No, actually, that's even earlier. No, the book that I had was blue.
Oh, wow.
A powder blue, hardback.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have it. That's the book that I have.
Now, when the messenger, and I can understand when he came up with the making of the devil. So you went to
the University of Islam.
Okay.
Yeah, I graduated actually from Chicago, 1975, February, right before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad transition, and then the school closed shortly after that and was renamed Clara Muhammad School.
Yes.
But yes, I was in the graduating class of 75 in New York.
Okay. So when Elijah Muhammad, the messenger, talked about the making of the devil, and I'm sure you know about Yaqub, where did that story come from?
So I honestly do not know.
Okay.
I can find out and ask some people, but if I was to use my logic, and it could be absolute fact, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I believe that it came from the teachings that were given to him in those 3 years that Farad was in Detroit. But it could have been also come directly from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But I don't believe so. I believe that Farad, one of the things that Farad did in reference to the teaching was he used a strategy in reference to God and the devil. And that strategy was to reverse the impression that had been placed upon African Americans with Christianity.
Okay.
So he flipped it.
He flipped it.
You see? He flipped it.
He flipped it.
And he said, no, you're not in our GGRs.
Right.
And because that's almost like calling somebody a devil.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And all that stuff about Ham, you come from Ham, it's almost that they were saying that we were devils.
Right.
And so he said, no, in fact, they devils.
Right.
And you God.
And he was able to flip the script.
That's what he did.
A man with a 4th grade education.
Well, no, actually, Farad flipped it. Farad taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that.
Okay.
But and what happened was, because it wasn't W.D. Farad, it wasn't Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it was the Lord.
Okay.
Of all systems and knowledge, there's the one powerful God. So, but they were used,
Right.
So this man, he comes with this idea, but the idea is given to a man, yes, with a 3rd grade education. But, like I said in the beginning, with a spirit and a knowledge and a love of God.
Yes.
And so he knew his religion. He was a Christian, and he knew that backwards and forwards. And so this what this guy is teaching him. He was intelligent enough. Because see, you don't have to have book knowledge.
That's right.
He was intelligent enough to say, okay, now I've heard this, and maybe they flipped it. You see? So it was easy for him to accept all of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're right to bring out the fact that he was very intelligent, even with a third grade education. Yes, sir.
And to talk about the 5 books, because many people that have branched off from the messenger, like just never able to actually produce books that circulated, that became part of a great curriculum like the How Did You Live Then to Fall of America.
I think what
It's Fall of America. Our Savior Has Arrived. And Message to the Bride. And these books are still circulating even today.
Oh yeah.
Today. And so we just, wonder what was the energy like, and what would the messenger think of today? Because he was really thinking so much about building a black nation within a nation. What would the messenger think about today, about black folks at this point of change?
Well, I actually think that he, and this is shared to me by Imam Wedding Muhammad, my father, his son, that he called it a nation, but what he really wanted, and what he wanted was for us was a community life, or a culture, just like when here in Newark and everywhere around this country, we can go to Chinatown, we can go to Little Italy, and different places. So he wanted a spot, and he wanted a place where they could come and see that that's us.
Sure.
And that we could live off of us as opposed to other people living off of us.
Sure.
Spending our money in our place.
Sure.
So, and he knew this was possible because he was old enough to have seen what took place in the Black Wall Street, and all that we had done. So he knew we could do this. So yes, he called it a nation because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad believed in extreme language.
Yes.
Because I went to the University of Islam.
You right there.
And that wasn't no college. And it sure wasn't a university. But we called it that, and we said it proudly.
Yeah.
So he believed in extreme language.
But was it a good school?
Oh, yes. Okay, so, and good is relevant. Of course, we had schools, we had like 200 and something schools around the country. So I was blessed to go to the school in Chicago, number 2, they called it. That school was certified. When I graduated, me and my fellow classmates, many of us, we went on to universities.
Okay.
I left there and went to the University of Illinois, Circle campus at that time. I ended up transferring from there, but I graduated from Olive Harvey City College, and I taught in the Clara Muhammad school system, and et cetera. So, but we have many people, I can say my uncle, Akbar Muhammad, he's passed on, transition, but he graduated from the University of Islam, and then he went to Al-Aqsa University in Egypt, and then he retired and transitioned from upstate New York, but he was over to the Islamic Studies and Black History Department of Binghamton University. So yes, the University of Islam that we call now Clara Muhammad School System, good school, morally and academically.
Was one of your uncles an artist? Was it a painter or something like that?
No, I think you may be talking about my cousin. My cousin Esau is very, very, very accomplished painter.
Okay.
But I will say this, as a family thing, that artistry is very, very common, and all of us have some type of artistry, be it culinary, be it drawing, painting. So many photographers. One of our cousins became a Nobel Pulitzer Prize.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Ozir Muhammad for his photography. So yeah, we have a lot of artists in our family.
Between Sister Clara and your Honorable Elijah Muhammad, how many kids?
It's 8 of them. It was 8.
8.
Yeah, 8.
Well, okay, we talked about Yaku, and actually the messenger, Elijah Muhammad, for the record, was able to flip the script. And we were called niggers, and we were able to call the white folk devils. Now, I'm going to say something personal that this has nothing to do with the messenger, but I guess I could credit him a little bit. I had a teacher when I was in the 4th grade, and I've always been like, I don't know how I come out this way, like a civil rights person.
It's in your genes.
Yeah, there was times when I stumbled on reading arithmetic in school, but I knew right from wrong. I had a teacher that used to give out cookies to the class. I didn't want no cookies, but my mother baked. You know, one of the old fashions, she baked everything. And he had this thing he would do. He would say, "Any, mini, miny, mo, catch a nigga by his toe, any, mini, miny, mo." And the little hungry kids at the time would still receive his cookies if he land on them. And I told my teacher, Mr. Fox, I said, "Mr. Fox, I want to tell you something. You better not never call me nigga." And I was a little boy, 4 years old. I mean, and I guess 10 years old in 4th grade. But I understood the difference because of what my parents had taught me. I understood that. And he would do things like he would read some old books where they referred to us as niggas, and he would show us in the book.
This is who they talking about.
Talking about us. And we had a black principal at the time, and I would tell her, but she didn't believe it. She thought making things up. So I got this book. It was red at the time. And I showed him he was a devil. And I've been paying people back ever since.
You remind me of this story. This story I was told. That's hilarious. Children will do it. Okay? This story I was told about, there was a reporter, European American reporter that, I think he was in the Boston area somewhere, but he asked some students that were some little kids that were Muslims, and they were in the nation, they went to the University of Islam and all of that. And he said to them, he pointed to the other little kids playing on them. There were some European American kids. He said that, "Do you play with those kids?" And the child said yes. And so then he said, "But are those kids the devil?" And the child said yes. And this is what I'm saying. You are a child, you innocent, but the child's going to tell you the truth. Because what was taught is still true and relevant. That behavior can make you the devil. And the behavior of your teacher was the devil's behavior. So he was the devil.
He was the devil.
Plain simple.
Because we were supposed to look up to this guy and the tricks that he played. And just to say, about 20 years later, I was in the airport, Newark Airport, and I see my principal, and she came over to me and said, "You know everything you told me about Mr. Fox?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "It was true." I said, "I told you. He was straight up Jim Crow." I said, "I told you that right there," because he had hurt a kid.
Oh.
Yeah, he tried to beat me up one time.
Oh, physically hurt the
physically,
child.
this guy was crazy. I fought him back.
Okay.
But, and I was able to roll with his punches. You know, but yes. And she came over and told me, she said, "You know, he really hurt some kid he hurt, you know, because they didn't get him out of the school system like they should have." And, you know, so she thought I was making, so I said, "I'm not making out." So I told you that right there. I said, "I told you that this guy, that's what he was saying, Jim Crow, that's the things he would say." He also said that he got mad at me because he told me that his cookies was homemade. So I said, "Them cookies are not homemade, Mr. Fox." He said, "How you know that?" I said, "Because my mother's a baker." You would have the cookie had the cream in the middle, sandwich cookie. One part of the cookie was light and the other one was dark. So you would have to bake a sheet of dark cookies and then a sheet of light cookies and then put them together. That would take you forever.
Yes.
And I told him just like that, because he had them in an old cookie jar.
Oh, okay. He took them out the store rack.
And put them in an old cookie jar. Like I said, them cookies.
Yeah.
Now I could understand, and for those that want to act like they don't understand, whether listening to this program, whether you're white or black, or whether you think you're white or you think you're black, because today we got people that black, they don't say that. One guy told me he was Chinese. I said, okay, that's the Chinese. I have nothing wrong with black Chinese, but that's what you are. And a white guy told me he was Indian. Okay, whatever. So everybody is what you think today. I don't get in whatever. I'm not here to push anything on you. But with that being said, I can understand the messenger at that point in challenge coming up with something to fight back. Because we had nothing to fight back at the time. Someone called us a nigger and hurt us.
That's right.
We had no word to come back. But when we could come back and say, you're the devil, blue-eyed, this, that, no, right? And most of them that we would probably react that to was not blue-eyed. But that was
that was the language.
That was the language.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can get along with, and I always said I wanted this interview. That's why I know this is God sent. I said, I want to meet one of the messenger kids or his grandkids, because I knew he had 8 to 10 kids. That's what I always thought.
He had 8 by my grandmother. He actually had 21. He has 21. Yes.
But I wanted to interview someone from Sister Clara, which would be the first family. Okay. And I can understand how the messenger could say the system was no good, because it wasn't.
Right, it wasn't.
Because even to Lyndon Johnson said back in the 40s, I believe, or when he was in the Senate, 40s or early 50s, he said he was in Texas, and his thing for nigger was niggers. He said, well, we got to give a nigger something. He said, I don't want to give him anything. You know what I mean? And he was one that in the 60s signed the Civil Rights Bill.
Right.
So he learned along the way that whatever. I can understand that. But where it's got me wondering. I've always wondered about this thing. I've always wondered and said, wow, what is this? When the messenger, Elijah, had put in this book, the battle in the sky, the mother plane. Well, now, see, the reason why it's believable for me, I would say, is because he didn't have to say that to sell us that the system was no good. Anybody with 2 second-grade education could know that the system was no good, because we would not even cut in.
Right.
And we had been here so long.
Right.
As I say, my family been in New Jersey 100 years.
Yes.
Not to count how long they've been down in Georgia. All right. When Elijah Muhammad stretched and talked about this mother plane, this ship, that it burned, he said he burned off of oxygen, which turned into hydrogen. It would come down and suck it up and go. Where did that come from? Because he didn't have to say that. See, he didn't have to bring that. He could have left that out this book.
That's right.
That could have been a private chapter just for certain people, but it wasn't. It was a known chapter, the mothership and the baby ship. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I can say about that, but about all of the things that seem so unbelievable.
Yes.
Was that, again, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a doctor, a scientist, a human reformer.
Yes.
And he was working with subjects or people that were in trauma and emergency status. So he shocked you.
Without a doubt.
Right.
So
these were shock methods. And imagination is what I believe that is about. but it's also about symbolism and their messages in it. But also, he had a third grade education,
Yes.
but he wasn't illiterate.
That's right.
And he read many books, including the Quran. And in the Quran and in biblical scripture, period, it talks about things that are to come.
Yes.
And we can go to those books and see now what we see, even with these cell phones and even with
Yes.
this and that. So I believe that in his quest to clean up his people, because that's what he said, I'm here to clean up my people,
Sure.
and someone after me will teach them Islam. He knew he had to shock you.
And
Just like
that was a great shot.
Yes, and so that's what that was a part of his tools.
So, but how much truth could there be ships up there?
Of course, we know that there could be. We know that there are other planets, and I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I'm gonna tell you straight, Laila, I believe that there's one God. I believe that God is unseen.
Yes.
I believe that God created everything.
That's right.
And I believe that everything is good. Okay, but I also believe that the human being, this flesh, is gonna go, but the soul remains, and the imagination remains. The mind is the man or the human, and that mind is expansive.
Sure, or without a doubt.
So scientists, which I am not, they say there are other planets
Sure.
and life, and I believe it because I am a believer.
Yes.
And God says in the Quran that He is the Lord of all the world.
Yes.
So that makes me, Laila, think
Right.
it's some other world.
Other worlds that we don't know
Yes,
anything
yes.
about.
So I believe it,
What about, I believe the messenger referred to black folk from the tribe of Shabazz. What is that tribe? Because I'm going to give another story, if you don't mind. There was a situation in Newark years ago where these guys was beating up this black guy. I mean, they were just literally just beating him up. And I was a little boy. I ran to the Christian reverend and I said, hey, they beating him. I must have been 5 years old. I said, they beating a man up over here. They beating him bad. I was a little boy, hysterical, whatever. And the reverend went into deep prayer. He went over deep, right? So
You want him to take some action.
So I looked at him. I looked at him real hard. I said, what you gonna do, Reverend? Even as a little boy. He was deep in the prayer. I said, I just seen you slap somebody 2 weeks ago and sit on your yellow Cadillac.
You were observant.
Very
You're a
much.
smart child.
He ain't do nothing. Well, I ran over to some brothers.
You mean the Nation of Islam?
Nation of
Okay.
Islam. And I said, what's wrong with you, young soldier? Look at him, they said. Look at him. Look, he's a Tribe of Shabazz. Look at him. True king and all that right there. Oh my God, it built me up so much.
Yes, yes.
I said, they're beating a man around the corner. And they said, show us the way.
I understand.
And I will never forget that because I was a kid.
Yes, yes.
Some guys on the milk truck had beaten this guy up, and I will never, ever, ever, ever forget that. Because that, as a little kid, you're helpless.
Yeah.
You're helpless in things of that nature, So when they said, you look at him, strong young soldier from the Tribe of Shabazz. I didn't know
He was like, what's the Tribe of Shabazz?
I didn't even know what Shabazz was. But I remembered that saying, and I heard it over and over. So what is this Tribe of Shabazz?
It's so I'll tell you this. So Imam Muhammad, he was Wallace Muhammad, in 1959 was the minister for the community in Philly, or the temple in Philly, number 12. And that's where I was born.
Okay.
But at that time, he had already been in trouble a few times with his dad about his idea and his philosophy and his thinking around Islam. Now, he had these different ideas because his father, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was so wonderful and should get so much credit for this, because it's a whole lot of Muslims in this country right now.
Yes.
And it's a whole lot of African American
Yes.
Muslims
Yes.
who are the voices and the bodies and the people that laid the foundation for the immigrant Muslims to have the life they have here.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Because they were here, some of them were here, but they was hiding.
Yeah.
They wasn't saying who they were.
Big time.
But the nation didn't have.
No.
In fact, the nation said, open the door, this is who we are. So my point is, okay, Laila, you got a little emotional and forgot about your point. So, my point is this, that in 1959, my father was on this journey because his father had given him a teacher along with other people in Chicago, other kids, an Arabic teacher, so that they could learn how to read the Quran in the Arabic and get the truth. So now he has this truth, but this truth is different with his father's philosophy.
Exactly.
But it was because of his father that he was able to get that truth.
That's right.
And then that's my point.
Yes,
So anyway,
yes.
so this Islam, Islam, as we say, is here, and we should ask God to reward the Honorable Elijah Muhammad
Yes.
for teaching letting those children have the ability to learn to read their Quran. So now, all of that to say, when I was born in November of '59, my father recited the Al-Fatiha in Arabic in my ear, and also called the Adhan, which is the call to prayer, in my ear. And that is the tradition of all Muslims.
Yes.
And from then to when he passed, I was just shy of 50 a few years. He always taught me Islam from the Quran.
Okay.
So I know some stuff. I can even recite lesson number C1. I can recite my actual facts. I know Shabazz. I know Yaqub, because I was a good student.
Yes.
And because I wanted to get an A. But do I truly know some of the stuff that you asking me in reference to, like, where did Shabazz come from? I do not know if it's real or if it's unreal.
Okay.
But what I do know, it is what you said. It is empowering. That little boy that heard that
That's right.
became, woo,
Yeah.
I'm from the Tribe of Shabazz.
Yes, Lord.
And then I also
Oh,
know
yes.
that it's still needed.
Yes.
Because what does it do? You said something earlier about this black and white, and about that Indian saying he was Indian, and about that Chinese saying he was Chinese. And I would like to share with you, dear brother Zachariah, that my evolution on what to call myself has gone to this point. And that is the best way to describe a human being is a place of origin. It's not a color.
Yes.
Colors are superficial and elementary. It's a lot of black folks. It's a lot of white folks. And some of them black folks ain't got nothing to do with me.
That's right.
I don't even know them, and they totally do, and vice versa.
That's right.
But the main thing about that color thing is that when you think, you said something about Muhammad Ali, when you think white, you think superior. I don't care who you are, how intelligent you are, how militant you are, subliminally it's in the back of your mind that the white mean power, and that the black means the opposite. So I don't want to call myself black. One, because I know my origin. And so I can call myself African American. Not because I rejected African American years ago when they first started saying it. I was like, okay, Daddy, I believe in following, so I'm going to respect your leadership. I'm going to do this. But I wasn't feeling it. And because I was never a person of back to Africa movement and all of that. But recently, at the hands of Imam Shahid Abdullah, a researcher here in Newark, he showed me a document that was written back in the 1800s.
Yes.
And it was a letter about to Cornwell, or some, what do you call it, general. But it was signed, it said, by an African American. So that told me, because I don't know how it happened either, but I always was born kind of activist, militant,
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I don't want this name anyway, because I think the white man gave, or the European American gave this name to us. But when I saw that an African, and a person that was living on this land, whether they had been free or not free, but they were African
Yes.
descent, and now they were saying, I fought in this war, and we are free from the British, so I am not just an African anymore, I'm an African American. So that makes sense to me.
Okay.
So I embrace the name African American because it tells me a place of origin. It tells me that I descended from Africa, that I fought for freedom in America, and now I have embraced that I am an African American. So I'm good with that. There are other reasons that personally I don't accept color names. Because I was a little girl in the Nation of Islam,
Yes, Lord.
and black was superior.
That's right.
And sometimes when they got to talking about black and I'm thinking myself don't look like that, I started feeling myself shrinking sometimes. And it's crazy because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was lighter than me.
That's right.
But sometimes that language could hurt a little child. And then as you get older,
If it's not explained.
if it's not explained, exactly. And then people don't know that they hurting kids sometimes. They just
Because my mother was very, very fair skinned, but she didn't have a complex about it.
Yeah, because some people nurtured her properly.
Yeah.
You know,
She
so
would
it
go
just
crazy
depends.
behind me.
You know, we had all colors in our family.
Yes.
My brother is brown like you, then I'm light, then we have in between. But the point is, not even if you have a good situation at home, when you go out into the public, Spike Lee made the movie about it. You know, that college movie? You had the light ones and the dark ones, and we do this to each other. We were trained to do this to each other. So for a number of reasons, I don't use those terms. I say African American, I say European American. I'll ask somebody, because I've learned the hard way. You can't figure out who a person is. So I used to guess on people and be embarrassed. So now I ask them, where are you from? Where's your family from? So anyway, but the Tribe of Shabazz, I think that it is real or it is not real. I don't know, but it is powerful.
It's character
Because
building.
the power is character building,
Yes.
but it's also culture building.
Yes.
Because you went to the Christian African American preacher because you wanted him to help his brother,
That's right.
and he did what he felt was right, and he prayed.
It wouldn't be prayer.
So,
We wouldn't come out of it.
but this is my thing. I'm not going to criticize him
Right.
because I believe in balance, and so we do need the prayers. But then you were smart enough. God guided you. You said the praying ain't gonna be enough. So we got to balance this scale. So you went to the brothers, and now I think this story really should be documented because it shows that we had Christians, and the Christians was praying. But you could have went to some Muslims. Some Muslims will say just pray too. But the point is you had one thing, prayer. Then you had this other thing where we're gonna take some physical action. So now you got a balance, and it impressed upon you. But what it did in my mind when you told me the story, it showed collective work.
Yes.
It showed culture. And that's what, whenever the Nation of Islam told anybody, whether they was a Muslim or not Muslim, if you looked like them, or if you was a descendant from slavery, or if you was even came over here as free, but you were in this space of people calling you a nigger, they said, no, you're not a nigger. You from the Tribe of Shabazz. So now we have this collective idea.
That's
We
right.
have this oneness of people. And this is something that is needed even today.
Yes.
Because right now, you go, the Haitians, they know who they are. They Haitians. And they're Haitian Americans. Or they're Spanish Americans. Or they're this American. But when you go to us, somebody gonna say, oh, I'm a Muslim. Or somebody gonna say, oh, no, I'm a Nation of Islam. Or somebody, no, I'm a Christian. Or I'm a holiness. Or I'm a this. But we're not asking you what you believe in. We're asking you, what is your place of origin? What is your culture? What is your unified collective culture?
Yes.
And I think that's what Shabazz does. It was given a unified culture.
Okay.
And what is our culture now? I'm going to give you some books and we can talk about it another time.
You know, Sister Laila, I'll say this right here. You know, everything is about the arrival of the mind.
Yes.
In church, we talk a lot about the heart. And when we talk about the heart, we're not talking about the heart of the mind. We actually, people believe in this physical heart. But this physical heart can be transplanted from one body to the next.
That's right.
But not the mind.
That's right.
It took me a minute to arrive, you know, like one of them big mothership. So when the baby ships leave the mothership, I want to give it to Elijah Muhammad on this one. They said that the ship can stop on a dime, and the baby ship can just move across or whatever. Well, after great study and understand what Elijah Muhammad was given, to understand that what Father Divine and many other leaders that come along, and I'm able today to arrive at the fact and be satisfied with being Black American. And I tell you the reason, because we have, in our journey here, we have such a great library. I don't think any other persons of color, people of color, have a library like we have. And I admire that library and the journey. Like with me, I'm able to look back 100 years in New Jersey, and
see your family.
And see the family, and know that if I go back, I can count up presidents, I can count up Hoover, I can count Roosevelt, and know where my family was. I can count Truman, I can count Ike, I can count Kennedy, I can count Johnson. I stopped at Johnson and paused there because of the civil rights bills that he said that he signed, and we shall overcome. And then I can go from Johnson to Nixon, from Nixon to Ford to our own president. I always call my own president from Plains, Georgia, Jimmy Carter, right?
Yes.
And,
Beautiful man.
A beautiful man and things of that nature. And then I can go from Carter to Reagan, Reagan being a Republican. But my mind paused on Carter because I said, it's kind of strange that Carter grew up basically down the street from Martin Luther King, but it was Ronald Reagan that signed the holiday into effect, the Martin Luther King Day in effect. And that kind of puzzle, I would like to ask President Carter why he didn't do it, And then from Carter, I go to Father Bush. From Father Bush, I can go to Bill Clinton. From Bill Clinton to son Bush to Barack Obama, which I was very much out there. I went to the Democratic Convention and, I had a radio show. We talked about Obama, and this, and that, from Obama to Trump, and then Trump, of course, to Joe Biden. You can't just do that if you haven't been here.
Right.
And along that line, I heard Les Brown say one time, he said in one of his speeches years ago, he said, you got to make it all right. I'm all right. I don't want nothing from other groups.
I understand. That's
you
exactly,
me?
yes.
I don't want nothing from other groups.
Yes.
And a lot of times I think that, because there was a thing on YouTube where some reporter was asking a Native African in Ghana about us. He said, well, they need to stay where they at. They don't need to come here. They don't need to do this. And we're this. And it has become such a battle, and things of that nature, that I'm good with being Black American because I come with a library.
No, I totally understand, and I agree with you.
This book here and his other 5 books are part of that library, right?
Yes, sir.
But then there's books on Father Divine. Then there's books on Noble Drew. There's books on Marcus Garvey, which, American side of Marcus Garvey. And the many other people that did books and character building. I couldn't give up being Black American.
Yeah,
I'm good. I'm good,
and I'm good too, brother.
I know
totally agree
that
with
the country have never reached out and gave us the right hand of fellowship. But I'm still.
Walaikum assalam.
I'm still good at this state. I'm good. I'm good. I don't want to be nobody. I like the characters that come out. I like Muhammad Ali. I like Joe Frazier. I like Oprah Winfrey.
No, I understand.
I like James Baldwin. I like Maya Angelou. I can just sit there and almost if I was a singer and just sung just an intro of all the Earth, Wind, and Fire songs that would be hits. You know what I mean? From Boogie Wonderland to After the Love Is Gone to just I could say that as a Black American. So I'm really good with where I'm at.
Yes.
But there's a lot of things that arrived me to this level. The Tribe of Shabazz. I can't forget that.
But that's what you're talking about, in my opinion. What you're talking about is that you're good. And you're good because you know yourself.
Yes.
And you know that you are a part of something.
Yes.
and that you know where that something is.
Yes.
So you have a culture. This is what you're speaking of, your culture, who you are, and who your people are. And yes, that's a name, and that could be, and it could have been Shabazz. But the fact is that we have to know that.
That's right.
That we have a culture,
Yes.
and that we have a oneness.
Yes.
And you couldn't have said it better for me, because guess what? I'm good.
I'm good.
Look, I wanted to go to Ghana. I went to Ghana, and they right. I don't need to come there. I will visit, because this is what I have. When I hear somebody say they need to stay, whatever, I say, wait a minute. I can travel the world.
That's right.
I can go and build anywhere in this world, but it's not my home.
That's right.
No, you're right.
That's right.
Ghana is not my home. The USA is my home.
This is my home.
Look, to tell you how proud I am of the United States of America, I purposely, when we went to the slave castles, I had on red, white, and blue on purpose. Now, nobody in my traveling companions, they didn't know, and it was funny because when I went there, somebody asked me, one of the people from Ghana, he said, "Are you a Delta?" Because I had on red. It was a red and white scarf. I said, "Man, the Delta's known in Ghana." I was like, "No, I'm not a Delta." I said, "But I am from the United States." Like
because
that.
we contribute a great deal, and I think that's what the messenger was saying. And when the Ku Klux Klan was writing, he said, "Well, this is our country." The messenger did say that.
Because it is.
Yes.
We
And so
built it and died for it.
we built it, died, and fought in every wars.
Yeah.
It's just that for whatever reason, people don't want to give us the right hand of fellowship. But sometimes you got to pat yourself on the back.
That's
I know
right.
people say they don't do that, but I think sometimes you do. Our leader was very successful with patting himself on the back.
He said he was pretty, right?
He's the greatest of all time.
But did he slow down on that? Because he knew he wasn't the greatest. He knew God was the greatest.
Well,
but yes, he taught us to pat ourselves on the back and,
but when you look at
affirm yourself.
Yes, when you look at a people that's been systematically broken down by a powerful government,
Yes.
millions and millions of dollars was spent on it. I'm talking about a legal record when I talk about our books. But what about the files, the FBI files?
Yes.
If you go into the archives and all the stuff, and what did we really want with a job and a house and just be a part of that?
That's all. We just wanted what every other human being wants, and it's the same. We want what every other human being wants. We don't want to stop another human being.
Right.
We just don't want you to crisscross and get in our way.
That's right.
So we're going to go our way, you go your way. God says in the Quran that you should go towards all good as if in a race.
Yes, yes.
And when you racing,
I
you
like
ain't
that.
jumping in front of people.
That's right. That's
you
right.
just you race.
Just racing.
And so that's all we want.
That's all we want. That's all we want.
Yes, sir.
To sum this interview, I'll ask you this here about your father. And it's been said, in thought, in one, do you think that Wallace D. Muhammad, your dad, do you think that he took people that was in the nation out of the uniforms too fast?
So, that's a good question. And if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of go back because you had asked me what would the Honorable Elijah Muhammad say if he was here now.
Today,
and
yes.
I went off into something. But I would like to say this. I think because he saw himself as the person to clean up the black man.
Yes.
I think and my grandfather was witty. And he had a little way he was talking, the way he would look. So I think he would crack a little joke and say, "Oh, y'all looking pretty clean, but you got a spot over there right there." So, he would say, we doing good, but we need a little progress. We need to. But I think he would be very, very happy that his son, who he taught the community of the nation, that would be the one to teach Islam. I think he would be happy that Imam Weddington Muhammad, W.D. Muhammad, Wallace Muhammad, brought that number of followers in 75 and specifically in 77 when he took the largest amount of people Muslims from America to Mecca to make the Hajj.
Okay.
That number has not been broken since. And they transitioned smoothly, wasn't no bloodshed. And it could have been because he came out here on the East Coast specifically so that some folks wouldn't kill up some people in Philly and New York. And literally said, don't kill Minister Farrakhan. And and it was done smoothly. So he would be happy with all of that, I think. But he would still say, we got some spots that need to be polished or need to be cleaned up. So now back to your last question in reference to Imam Muhammad. Did he take them out? Or did he take us? Because I wore my uniform proud through the streets of Chicago.
The MGT.
Oh yeah, I wore them every day because I went to school. I wore it every day to school. I didn't always wear it on the weekend because my father was a little forward thinking and I didn't have to. But I always dress modest. And that's what the dress of a Muslim is. America is trying to Arablamize Islam now and make you think that to be a Muslim, you got to do this.
Right.
That's a lie. You just have to be modest. You don't even have to wear a scarf to be a Muslim. You have to be modest. You could see a woman that's totally covered and she could be indecent.
Yeah, sure.
So that's a whole nother conversation. But did he take us out the uniforms too early?
Yes.
I would say no, because guess what? He didn't tell everybody to take the uniforms out. He just said it wasn't mandatory. So what he did was he allowed people, and not just allowed, he encouraged us to think, become adults, and make rational decisions. Now, if I'm an adult,
That's right.
and I know I got a cold,
Okay.
but she an adult, and she doesn't have a cold, then, and I'm gonna bring it to modern time.
Okay.
If I'm an adult, and I know I have some type of illness,
Yes.
and that we just went through COVID, so I need to wear a mask.
That's right.
But this person over here, they know they tip-top health, they and they don't have to wear a mask.
That's right.
But each adult can make their own decision.
Yes.
So we are living in the same time
That's right.
that the Nation of Islam members were living in back in '75, when Imam Muhammad, or when Chief Minister, no, he was called Supreme Minister, Deb Wallace D. Muhammad.
That's right.
When he said you don't have to wear the uniform anymore. He didn't say you can't wear it. He said you don't have to wear it. He did say you can't make it mandatory. He told the people in charge, the officials, you can't make these people buy this uniform and they don't want to, or even if they can't afford it. He allowed us to be adults and to make decisions that only an adult can make for themselves.
Okay.
So no, he didn't take us out.
Yes.
Some folks stepped out of it too soon. But that was their decision. And some adults make bad decisions.
Yes.
But you can't blame it on my daddy, and you sure can't blame it on my leader, because he's my daddy and my leader. There, you can't blame it on him. So no,
All right. The last question.
Yes, sir.
And I hope to interview you again.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
I would like to know, and I guess the whole world would like to know this here. In the messenger Elijah Muhammad, in his mind's eye, in his mind, what would he think of Minister Louis Farrakhan that said, I'll go back, I believe in 1973, Randall's Island meeting where 72,000 people was there, and Farrakhan described Elijah Muhammad as a fountain of wisdom. What would he think of Minister Farrakhan today?
Well, I think first of all, he would think and be very happy to know that Minister Farrakhan is not still only, but has matured and grown in his presentation.
Sure.
Because he is a great orator. He's a man that studies, and he's an organizer. And I think that when we talk about balance,
Sure.
those things are needed. You can't just pray. You got to organize.
Sure.
So he would be very pleased with that. I also think that he would be very pleased to know that Minister Farrakhan had the wisdom to invite, and then that invitation was accepted by Sultan Muhammad, who is the nation's what they call first imam, who is also the grandson of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He's my cousin, and he studied the Arabic when his father lived for a little while in Saudi Arabia, so he knows the Quran. He is training and teaching people in the nation to read the Quran, so therefore they can evolve just as Imam Muhammad and his classmates Akbar Muhammad, Darnell Kareem, Gloria Kareem, Zuhaira Kareem, and others. They learned the Quran so they could understand from the original language and begin to share what the truth of this book is. So I think my grandfather will be very happy that Minister Farrakhan didn't say, oh, that's not necessary. They just need what I have in my head. He was wise enough to find someone that could read that Quran and then share and teach. But lastly, I think that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would be happy because Minister Farrakhan is not just a great orator or a wise person or an organizer, but he is a member of our family in that several of his children are married to several of my family members, and they have birthed our family. And so we're family. And even before that happened, the relationship between my grandfather and many of his ministers, including Minister Farrakhan, including Brother Malcolm, was a father relationship. He loved them. It was said when Minister Malcolm, Brother Malcolm El Hajj Malik Shabazz, may Allah just rest peacefully, him and his wife, Sister Betty, I love her. And I had the pleasure of knowing her as a baby, but then again also having the pleasure of meeting her, re-meeting her as an adult. And I have a great respect for her. So may they both rest peacefully and be in the highest station of paradise. But when my grandparents were at the dining room table and they heard of the assassination, my family shared with us that their heads dropped and they felt sad because that was the son for them. And so I think that my grandfather would be happy to see one of his non-biological sons striving to move towards his human potential. Because that's all we all are doing.
That's all we are.
It's working to be our human excellence. Just working towards that. So
Okay, well, before we conclude, you have a book.
Yes, I have a book.
By Sister Laila.
Yes.
Sitting Under the Tree.
Yes, sir.
Poems commemorating Juneteenth. Oh, commemorating Juneteenth.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. It came out last year as a result of me, that activism in me. So when President Biden said he was going to make it a holiday, at first my emotion was like, yeah, right. Why are you making it a holiday? You know how long we've been celebrating this? So I think you're just trying to trick us and give us a little day off so we won't keep moving right. But I said, Laila, don't do that because now you have moved to the mark in the space of gray hair and wisdom, and you choose your battles. So I said, put that pen to paper and look for the poems and put a collection together and be rational. So I put this together last year, and it's done well. It's my third book of poetry, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it is.
So you actually do poetry?
Yeah, I do poetry.
Okay, one of these days I gotta record.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And is this for me?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And if anybody wants it, they can contact me at two places: sisterlaila.com, my website, or they can just call me directly, 708-698. 0713.
And what is the price?
The price, if I have to mail it to you, is $25.
Okay.
Now, it's meant to be a coffee table book. It's meant to be something to bring about dialogue. and to not read and just absorb it as an individual, but to then share it, even with strangers. Leave it at your doctor's office, and then come back and buy another one. But
of course.
it can go as low as $10, but we have to talk about that.
I see here you have the enslaved African Americans of Garrison, Texas, joins the ranks to move forward. Destination freedom. Our movement is forward. Segregation, integration, welfare, Democrat, Republican, the union spirit.
No,
Or the union split.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, union split. Yeah, and that right there, right? President Lincoln says, if I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that.
That's what he said.
So it, so we've been a political specimen from the time being.
That's right.
I guess I end with the words of Don King.
What is that?
Only in America, and I think in one of his movies, he said, it ain't all about that angels in the sky and everything. He said, right down here on earth, it's all about this money on earth.
Yeah, well, especially in America.
Yeah.
America is about commerce. I mean, and it can take you to hell or take you to heaven.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
Thank
Laila,
you.
for this interview. We've been reaching out to each other since late March.
Yeah. Thank you for your patience, but things happen in God's time.
It happened in God's time, and trust me, I was never aggravated. I was telling people that someone interviewed Elijah Muhammad's granddaughter, Laila Muhammad, and everybody is excited to listen. So thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Again, this is Zachariah Jackson, BASA News. Goodbye.